We'd like to welcome everyone out tonight to our City Council meeting, Tuesday, January 23rd, and we are grateful to have Melanie Mortensen here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, Council. Please stand. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'd like to invite Luca Bailey up to the front, and he will give us his speech. This was a speech that he gave for the First Amendment speech contest.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for coming, and we're excited to hear you tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I am now going to say the freedom of religion speech, and I'm going to go say the speech in English. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What does this mean? That we have freedom of religion. I will always be grateful for those who thought and were inspired about these freedoms. I think freedom of religion is an important human right. It is something that we all need because we all think different. We all have different faiths and make our society to be diverse. Isn't it amazing that I can believe in God, my friends believing in the sky, or my neighbor believing in whatever he wants? We need freedom of religion for all those who are religious or not. I think freedom of religion is crucial. It allows me to think, to express, to act upon what I deeply believe. I feel happy that I can go with my family to church each Sunday and worship God. What a privilege it is to live in this country. My country, United States of America. Thank you, Mayor Harris, for giving me this opportunity for the second chance.
You're so welcome. We are all glad that you came back. Good job, Luca.
Thank you, Mayor.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Okay, we will now move to our public comment period. If you'd like to speak, please state your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, that was adorable. Oh my gosh. How do you follow that? Mayor and council members, my name is Melanie Mortensen. I live at 68 Windsor Court, and I have been meaning to come before you since last August. So I apologize for the delay. I wanted to thank you individually, collectively, the Trails Committee and the Streets Department for doing the work and the request to access the grant, to receive the grant, to paint the bike lanes on Bountiful Boulevard. Shortly after they were finished, I had people reach out to me, sending me pictures and asking if I'd seen it yet. And I have to admit, every time I go up there, I smile, whether I'm running or biking or driving now or super bundled up. It makes me so happy to be up there. And I just love that this is evidence of what can happen when we as a community can come together. So I wanted to come and publicly thank you for your efforts in beautifying our city and for listening to so many of your constituents, and let you know that it does not go unnoticed and your efforts do not go wasted. I know you don't get a lot of thank yous from this particular pulpit, but I came here tonight to thank you, and I am truly grateful.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak for public comment? Okay. We will consider approval of minutes of previous meetings held January 5th and 9th, 2024.
I motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Thank you. And now we have council reports. We'll start with you, Councilwoman Bradshaw.
Oh, there's so much to report from the state capitol. There's a lot going on. One in particular I'd like to share with you, one issue from the Capitol is, I think one that's near and dear to all of our hearts, dealing with signature gathering and petitions and revenue bonds and fiber. Senator Baldiri has introduced a bill, SB 100, that would, as currently drafted, double the time length that a group would have to seek signatures to overturn revenue bond proposals that are put forward. The bill doesn't include any additional transparency measures for those that would go about those efforts. And of course, we had an interesting experience this past summer with an outside group that didn't disclose their efforts, their funding sources, and engaged in some very interesting misleading tactics, claiming they were working for the city or at the direction of the city to gather signatures. So I noticed this bill and thought it was deeply concerning, and set up a meeting with Senator Baldiri to express those concerns. I invited Councilman Higginson and Gary to join me for that meeting, where we expressed our concern that she would essentially double the time that an outside group would have to engage in those efforts without adding any additional transparency requirements. She was gracious in hearing us out, and we described our experience last summer. She has indicated that she doesn't intend to go back to the original time limit that is allowed in code for the revenue bonds, but she is open to adding some additional transparency requirements. Haven't yet seen a substitute of that bill, but it is scheduled to be in committee tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So wanted to put that on everyone's radar. Among the many other things they've introduced in the record number of bills and bill requests so far this year.
So 2 o'clock, it will be in committee tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for your work. Do you have other things to report on for us?
I'm happy to answer any questions about bills. There's so many. So
Yeah.
I will just conclude there unless anyone has any questions about any of the happenings from the League's Legislative Policy Committee or other issues on the Hill.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Is there anything that would affect our power from what you've seen so far?
There are two bills that would impact the Intermountain Power Plant, of which Bountiful is a participating entity. One bill would say that the project could no longer issue municipal bonds, power revenue bonds, to build future projects or to upgrade transmission lines or things like that after 2045. That would allow the current project to be built, but no additional municipal power projects or upgrades at the site. So that's a bill by Senator Sandel, HB 114. And then the other bill that is filed is also Senator Sandel bill, SB 120. Those are both SBs for Senator Sandel. Is a board decapitation bill. So it would replace the current board of Intermountain Power Agency, which is made up of the Utah entities that own and operate the plant. The 7 board members, of which one of the board members is our own Alan Johnson from our power department. It would replace that board and control of the assets with a board appointed by the legislature and the governor. And presumably they are doing that to take control of the asset and move it in a different direction than the one the municipalities have jointly decided to take that asset in terms of repowering with natural gas and hydrogen. So both of those have been filed. We expect more dealing with that. And there was a meeting just before I left the state capitol on other entities that are interested in taking over that particular project. So that continues to be an interesting attack on one of our power assets.
So to clarify, they would have a board that would just make the decisions, but would maintain ownership, but they would decide everything for us.
The way it's, I think, best described is, right now, collectively, the municipalities have a car, and we can drive the car wherever we want. And this would be an attempt for the legislature to say, they have taken the keys and they will drive the car. It's still our car. We don't get to decide when to drive it and how to drive it and where we're going.
Thank you.
Interesting, thanks. Thank you for your work. Councilman Higginson.
First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Bradshaw for her efforts on the Hill, and Mr. Hills as well, and yours, Mayor. So the meeting with Senator Baldry was, it was nice that she would see us. She was involved with the Utah County's grassroots effort to change their form of government, and she felt like there wasn't enough time for them to collect the signatures. So the fact that the Utah Taxpayers Association folks asked her to run the bill gave her an opportunity to run the bill that she also feels strongly about herself. Tried to help her understand the difference between a well-funded corporate signature gathering campaign versus a grassroots resident organized campaign, but that didn't seem to change any of her plans. As Councilmember Bradshaw said, she said that as it's currently written, it will double the time period to 60 days. She said that she likely is going to substitute the bill with a 45-day window, and that she would be happy to add in the transparency issues. She asked us if we had something pre-written that we could submit to her, which we did not. I don't know what the process would be to get that done, although I guess she has folks that can write bills for her if she wants to include transparency. Councilmember Bradshaw detailed for her what transparency requirements are listed for other types of recall efforts for bonds, and I don't know if those will make it into this or not. So anyway, it was a little bit frustrating. Additionally frustrating is the fact that there are radio ads. There are mailers that we got some today where we're still under attack as an organization by the incumbent folks who are trying to throw a wrench in, first of all, the concept of Bountiful Fiber, and second of all, signing up folks for service. So if we have an opportunity to continue to get the word out to residents, clarify any misconceptions that are being shared on radio and otherwise, it would be a really good thing to not be silent on the issue. We've got to stay vigilant and continue to share. So that's it.
It's got to be frustrating. I think it really is slander. I really do. The accusations, and some of it's just really outright a lie. So,
as our process went along, when Bountiful Fiber came about, it was specifically required of our contract and confirmed numerous times by various members of this board that our contract with them has zero to do, financially or otherwise, with their past debts and with that old organization that has been replaced. And anyway, it's frustrating to hear the not just misinformation, which who knows what that means, such a common term today, but the outright lies that are being told about our situation here. It's frustrating. So,
indeed. Thank you. Councilman Murray.
I don't have anything to report on the Hill, but I do have just an announcement so we can have it logged. Is on March 29th, Toast will be coming back. Their concert is at Woods Cross. Tickets are on sale. I think the Community Service Council's already updated their website with a link to get the tickets, and a lot of the funds from that go to funding our summer concert series and some other things, and the update I received last week was a lot of those slots are getting filled up pretty quick. And then I don't know how, I get some small updates on the handcart days, but it sounds like planning is going very well with that as well, with future announcements coming out of there.
Excellent. Thank you. Just as a report, for me, we had a fire district meeting where the fire department is talking about hiring an additional building inspector. And also they have 5 recruits in training right now. So they're hoping that all 5 will be able to come through the program successfully. Also, just as by way of a report, we met as a Davis County task force for homelessness, and what the task force has decided to do was to have the county lobbyists make a request to the state for an appropriation for funding, which we know I've heard from sources that I think know their stuff that it's not likely that we'll get that funding, that appropriation, but the county is asking for homeless resources for funding. And so we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, we're considering options for Code Blue and for emergency shelters for starting next winter. Councilman Bell, do you have anything to report?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. All right, we now will consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid January 3rd and 10th, 2023.
Happy to make a motion. After I turn my mic on, that we approve those expenditures as printed.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes, and now happy to turn the time over to our new city attorney, Mr. Brad Jepson, our open meetings training.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You got me? Looks like I just created a new slide. All right, Council. Oops, pull up a Google Drive. Okay, guys, I am not exactly sure what I'm doing here. Oh, there we go. All right, guys. First of all, there's going to blend into a couple things. We're going to talk about records. We're going to talk about some ethics. But as far as campaign finance is concerned, I'm sure you guys have had this speech before. That's not going to involve me. That won't involve the city attorney. I would hope that when that time comes, you guys can get some counsel or make sure that's all in order. But this isn't going to touch on any of that tonight. So we're going to start. I was trying to see if my job was actually necessary, so I just used GPT and said, make me a open meetings training under Utah's laws. And it came up with this, where City Councilman Jesse, he gets a meeting, and he said, hey, just imagine if he gets together and he shouts out, hey, let's talk about stuff. And anyone who stumbles upon this gathering is welcome to come in. And instead of taking minutes, he writes it down on a napkin. Aunt Sue said about her cat adventures. When it comes to public notice, he sends a carrier pigeon invitation. Essentially, this is the circumstance that our law is trying to overcome. Now, I was actually very impressed by GPTs, but didn't quite give us everything we need, so we do have a few more things to go over. First of all, what is a public meeting? For the purpose of this council, it's going to be when we have a quorum, which by our code is going to be 3 or more. Now, I do like cautionary tales, and I talked to Mr. Hill earlier, and I hope I don't offend anybody by going through some of these cautionary tales that I'm going to go through. I think, especially in our state, there's people we can learn from. Now, the state has said this does not include electronic messages to each other when a meeting is not convened. I do want to warn the council on this. First of all, please don't text anybody during meetings. If we have somebody up here talking and you guys are trying to make a decision, you're texting back and forth, hey, did you see the bug in the room? It's driving people crazy. That can be problematic. The other thing is, and I know we have text messages, we have email chains, we have all these things. It's important that any real debate or any real decision, that's not made in those text message chains. I'll talk a little bit later about why that's important. Even though the state legislature does say this doesn't include those, there is some issues here. So we have these 2 guys from San Juan County up here. I believe it's Kenneth Maryboy and Willie Gray Eyes. And for those of you who followed this, this was a very politically charged thing in a very small county involving 2 of the Navajo county commissioners and then a non-Navajo county commissioner, where they were trying to contract the Navajo Nation to take care of some roads. And these 2, they went out and they didn't work with the elected county attorney. They hired their own attorney, and they met beforehand and basically planned out strategy for getting these ordinances passed and putting some statutes into place. Ultimately, the Attorney General's office went down there, and they came up with this idea. The purpose of these meetings was to make sure they were on the same page regarding commission agendas. They did have an open meetings training, and they were warned by the county attorney that they may be violating the statute, and this did in fact violate the statute. Now, it's a little bit different for us because we're more than a 3-person councilman. It takes more than have a quorum, but the same thing goes into place. Now, the Attorney General's office decided not to press charges for some other reasons, but this was a violation of the Open Meetings Act, where basically 2 of the council members got together to strategize against another council member. Okay, we do have some exceptions. We can go into closed meetings. Now, there are a whole list of exceptions. I didn't want to bore you guys with all of them. Here's the mental ones that we have. But the statute gives us a lot of reasons why we would want to go into a closed session. And at that point, we have a lot more latitude about what to do. Now, we all know these as well. We have our open meetings. You guys see these agendas. We give notice. And it is important that we don't discuss, at least take any final action on anything other than what we have listed in the agenda. Now, if somebody during public comment period comes up and they give us a speech and want you guys to take immediate action, that doesn't stop us from having some discussion on it. What it will stop us from doing is making any final decision or taking any action on it. So ideally, if there was they brought up a concern that concerned the council, we would discuss it and decide that it was a good topic for a future agenda, and then we'd notice it up and we'd move on to give other people a chance to come in and discuss the same issues. Now, this is an important part of the closed meetings, and over here to the right, and I'm sure Councilwoman Bradshaw will remember this. This was the Inland Port Authority and a group that really wanted to stop the Inland Port Authority. And the Inland Port Authority kept trying to move these to closed meetings so that they couldn't disrupt this, which became problematic because they had to fit one of those statutes. The other thing that became problematic is we have to, and you guys used to have a roller, and we'll get that back. I did confirm Clint did steal it. He had hoped to impress Layton City with it. But he will be returning the roller. So we know how we're sent to a meeting. Now, the key part that I want to talk about here is records in a closed meeting. There's a lot of problems with these records in a closed meeting. First of all, depending on which one of these reasons we're discussing, they could have attorney-client privilege indicated in them. So let's say we're discussing some litigation strategy on a case that we have, and you guys talk about it, I give you guys some advice, and then one of the council members, they decide that, I'm gonna go to, my town hall meeting and meet with my district, and I want to tell them, how we're saving them money by doing this idea and this strategy in litigation. While you're not actually taking these closed records like the minutes or your notes, but you're taking information from that and you're removing it from an attorney-client privilege and into the public realm, we could still, first of all, we could lose attorney-client privilege, and all those communications in that closed record could become discoverable via interrogatories or depositions. So we got to be careful in what information we take as council members out of that closed meeting and disperse to our constituents. If it's something we believe the constituents need to be aware of, then the method for that, of course, is to get it on the regular agenda and discuss it on the regular agenda. Particularly, and we use the term minutes here, but it's also going to apply to some of your guys' notes. You guys take notes from a closed meeting. Those notes are protected under GRAMA. They are not records that the public can get access to unless we waive that right and start sharing them. So let's always be careful with what information we disperse from our closed meetings. Now, this brings up records. I know this isn't part of the Closed Meeting Act, but it's something that I wanted to hit on really quickly. What communications are public? And there's our Attorney General, Mr. Sean Reyes, down in the corner. And recently, the State Records Committee, and it's on appeal, he has, obviously the AG's office appealing this, but they found that his calendar was public. So his Google Calendar was a public record. Now, I don't tell you this to scare any of you guys about your calendars, but that is how far our state has gone on these open records. The general rule is that all government records are open to the public. Now, we do have a lot of exceptions, private, protected, controlled, a lot of things that can help us control those records and not release them. But as a general rule, our records are open to the public, including communications between you guys that would have a matter of public concern. So if one of the council members texts another one, congratulations on your new grandchild, what a wonderful thing, probably not an open record. But if we start discussing in these text messages this development that we're looking at and how we're going to move this development forward or not move it forward, those could be public records. But there's also a distinguishment between what's a public record and what's a subpoenable record. Now, the public records, that's something that anybody can come in and get a hold of. What the subpoenable records are these are records that are only going to be available via subpoena if we get involved in litigation, particularly commercial litigation or real estate type litigation. So many of our closed public meetings, we're going to do a lot of that under the attorney-client privilege, which is going to protect those records, unless we lose that privilege by disclosing that outside of our room. Generally, we can keep those things confidential. We got to be careful, though. Anytime we start discussing things outside of the immediate circle, we can lose those privilege. So even if they are protected under state code, they still could be discoverable if we end up in some sort of litigation involving that issue. Okay, last topic I want to talk about, ethics. Should be no surprise to anybody. You can't use your position to benefit yourself or an immediate family member's own economic interest. You can't secure special privileges for yourself. Please disclose conflict of interest. And we can't use insider information to gain any sort of pecuniary gain. The pictures to the right, first one up there, that's obvious. Council members, please don't try to use your position to get us speeding tickets. It's kind of an awkward deal for our police officers, our prosecutors, our judges. The one on the lower end, that one's a little bit more difficult. And this is like a real estate idea. You guys have some information about real estate sales, real estate transactions, rezones. You guys also have other careers and investments. It's important that we don't use information that you guys gain through a special session, through a meeting with a developer, or any of your own authority in order for any pecuniary gain. Even if it's small, it can still get us in trouble, which brings us to, of course, these two individuals. For those of you guys who don't remember, This is Mark Shirtliff and John Swallow. Councilman Bradshaw is smiling at me. This was very big in my world. You guys know, probably have heard the rule. We cannot accept gifts in our official capacity in excess of $50. Christmas time, our office, you guys might receive, a basket of goodies, a gift card, something like that. It's important that we make sure we're not accepting any gifts in excess of $50. Now, what happens if you guys have a friend that has a very nice houseboat in Lake Powell, and that friend also happens to be a real estate developer that is working and actively working in the city, and he invites you down to stay at his houseboat for a couple weekends, or maybe even use it for a week as a friendly gesture. Well, what happened to Mr. Swallow was he was charged. He was obviously found not guilty at trial, but needless to say, it created a pretty large scandal for the Attorney General's office, as well as for our state in general. We were making national headlines, and we weren't making them for the right ways. So just a caution on that. We know you guys have relationships, and we know that your relationships may involve people who may from time to time have an issue before this body. I would just ask you to exercise your discretion. As a public servant, as somebody who has authority to make decisions on behalf of the citizens, exercise your discretion for those, not necessarily quid pro quo gifts. Obviously, that's not a problem. Somebody's paying you $1,000 to vote yes. We know that's a problem. This more hidden thing with people that we have an existing relationship with that may come back to reflect poorly on us as a community or on yourselves as a council. And finally, government use of personal property. This man off to the right, he was the Carbon County Sheriff, served Carbon County for a long time, I believe 18 years. He was in the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. He retired and bought a place in St. George. He used his city truck, his city gas card, and his county truck, his county gas card, and his county enclosed trailer to begin the process of moving to St. George while he was retiring. This, of course, is using government property for a personal purpose. There are a few exceptions to this. We are allowed de minimis use that doesn't decrease the amount, the value of something, like using a cell phone to text somebody, mostly electronic devices. But anytime you guys have the opportunity to take a city truck or a city vehicle or a gas card or any other city equipment, make sure that we're using it for the government purpose and not for any personal use. And this case was kind of a wake-up, mostly to law enforcement who do have take-home vehicles. And most agencies, they really tightened up on take-home vehicles policy after this, because technically, he said, I was just taking my vehicle home. Unfortunately, my new home is in St. George and not Price any longer. So I was just taking it home on the weekends. So we have tightened up a lot of those. But those are some of the common pitfalls to be aware of. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you. It's really good for us to always be reminded of these things. And Council, I liked the discussion about texting. Just to keep in mind that anything we text each other could eventually be something that is made public, and just to always kind of have that in our minds, and that the appropriate times for deliberation are in public and open meetings, not in texts or in emails or anything. So, any other comments or questions? It's a great reminder. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that presentation, and it was entertaining too. Thank you.
Can
Great.
I make one comment?
Yes, please.
I would like to request that first slide be stricken and never used again. And that picture should not be used in any future public meeting.
Unfortunately, it is now a public record, and I am unable to mutilate
future
or destroy a
public.
public record.
Okay.
Mayor, I have another motion, and that is that photo become mandatory on all training documents going forward?
It was a very good photo, taken, I think, from your professional website, if I recall.
Yeah, sorry, neither of you got a second, so we're moving on.
All right.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Very informative, good reminders. So we'll now consider granting final approval for the Eagle Ridge Drive dedication plat. Mr. Lloyd Cheney.
Thanks, Mayor. We're just a few weeks past the completion of construction on the Eagle Ridge Drive project, and there's one item of business we need to take care of to kind of wrap this up. You may remember a couple years ago that we revised the city's street master plan, and I provided a graphic at the bottom of your first page of our memo showing the section of the road that we intended to build as a 60-foot wide right-of-way, and that's essentially what we have done. Future phases of Eagle Ridge Drive will have to transition back to match the 54-foot wide width of Eagle Ridge Drive as it exists below the B right now. The property transaction between the Rainies and the city did exactly that. It granted the city the ability to construct that road. What it did not do was formally dedicate it as a right-of-way and as a utility corridor. And the plat, the dedication plat included in your packet gives some very specific locations for where this road actually lies on the ground. And so that is the formal item that will be recorded at the county and will officially create Eagle Ridge Drive for perpetuity. Be happy to answer any questions you have about that.
We really appreciate your work. This was really exciting for us to get this done. Any questions or comments, council?
Mayor, I'll just echo your thanks to all those who made this happen. It was an unusual effort. And then I'd be happy to make a motion that we grant, or that we approve the dedication plat for Eagle Ridge Drive roadway.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, Lloyd Cheney, you're the last one.
Mayor, quick question.
Yes.
It was such a long effort to get that section of road done. Do we have any thoughts about like stretching a ribbon across it and inviting the neighbors to help us cut it maybe sometime when the weather's a little better?
Yes, please.
It's up to the council.
Yes, please.
I'm in favor.
Okay,
If you
sounds
wanted
like
to be
we
in a
would.
hurry, maybe you could drive a snowplow through it.
Ooh. Wow. Can we name the snowplow?
With a name on the side.
You're getting her excited. So I think the council would like to do that. So just sometime in the next few months, when the weather allows, when staff is,
Let's do it in the middle of a snowstorm so we can use a snowplow. No, I think when the weather permits, I think it's been, the effort on this is longer than I have served on this council. It feels like the neighborhood, and maybe even our county friends, we can think about that later, ought to come join us for something fun that symbolizes we have created a road that helps solve an access point problem, a public safety problem, and all of those things.
okay.
Councilmember Bradshaw, how would you feel about, in honor of our relationship with the county, inviting them one week and then disinviting them and then inviting them again the next week and then disinviting them?
Or ghosting
Until it
for months at a
happens.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are all possibilities. I
Okay.
think that could
But
be considered.
not probable.
I
We'll
would
ponder
not
on that.
suggest such.
Okay. So sounds like a plan. We will have a road opening, and we will do it sometime soon when it works for staff and when it works for us to do that.
Wonderful.
What's that?
And when it's warm.
And when it's warmer. Okay, after the session. Okay. All right, sounds great. Thank you. We voted on that. Okay, thank you. Lloyd, the last one is for you too.
Thank you, Mayor. The engineering department has been a little remiss in keeping track of completions on a couple phases of the Stone Ridge subdivision. So phases 2 and 3 have been completed for a little while, and it's time to release the bond and formally accept the improvements that have been built for those 2 phases. My staff has inspected both phases and find that they are in acceptable condition, and that it'd be appropriate to relieve the developer of his obligations to maintain, and since we're already plowing snow on most of those anyway, and return his bond funds to him.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry, Matt.
Aye.
Aye.
That was seconded by Councilman Murray, unless there's any confusion. We're adjourned.